Well, the good news is they gave you the whole seat, but you're only gonna need the edge.
All right, well, a lot of the stuff we've already talked about, so this was a great opportunity to kind of put a bow on it and send it on its way, but we do want to break out in kind of those same groups now that you've kind of been thinking, but I think we wanted to focus on just a select few of these questions since we've already broke out into groups to talk about these same things, but our whole idea here is how to get the member and what's the role of that volunteer in our campaign. So how do we get them to do these things? So the question has come up several times today, how do we get them more engaged? And maybe new things have come up since we've talked about this morning. We've talked about this about 80,000 times in the past couple days, but I wanted to focus more a little bit on the next few questions. So Connie, if you wanted to bring those up on our discussion.
Yeah, so one of the things we really want to get in here is how do volunteers get trained? So here's what we want you, one of the things we want you to discuss. We want to know, how do volunteers get trained? What do we need to train volunteers on? And then you're gonna think about what those resources look like. So you're gonna take that whole piece and you're gonna think about how do we train them? First of all, I guess we need to identify what we're training them on, right? We want to be volunteer friendly, micro volunteer opportunities, etc. And so there's the traditional membership training that might occur. Do we need to train them when they're at events in a different type way, etc. So what are we training them on when it comes to membership, all the different ways they can get involved, and then how do we get those volunteers trained? So that's one of the things we really want to focus on. We're talking about tactics that volunteers use to sell memberships. So everybody has at least one, hopefully, good membership salesperson. How does that person, what are they using to sell memberships? What tactics are they using? How is that successful for those people in your groups? And we discussed this one a little bit, how to get volunteers comfortable with selling value. And I think we discussed a little bit with that. We just said, we need to maybe break that down, just make things simpler. And so that one we probably won't spend as much time on, because I think maybe what we'll do is go back and find a way to simplify that and then bring it back out again and rediscuss that in regional memberships. And then here's Trevor's favorite. How do volunteers acquire payment in the field? So right now, we have checks, we have credit cards. We just said we can, as a new improvement, have credit cards be in our statements. But if you are one of the less people in Southern Ohio, you have no internet and you have a portal, but can't use the portal. How are we going to go out and how are we going to have volunteers acquire payment in the field? What's the best way around that? Whether you're some of you are going to be technologically and or otherwise challenged with the internet on that one. So take a little time, go through, break those out, and then you can come back with answers as well as suggestions of how we're going to do these things, and then we'll kind of bring it back, go around and discuss.
And the last thing I would add is to that, how do we acquire payment in the field? Put yourself in the volunteer shoes, not the OD shoes. You could pull up your laptop and crunch in a credit card number and send it on its way if you have service or internet. But with a maybe nervous volunteer that has done this before but unsure, they're going to either have to handle cash. Do they have change for that cash, or do they take the receipt? The whole process, I don't want that to be a missed opportunity when they are successful on a sale. They've got the money, but we can't turn that money down because we don't have the change. What's the alternative? So kind of dive a little deeper into that whole process. So we just want to stay in the same groups as we just were.
The same groups, and just because the last group seemed like everybody ran out of time, we'll give them a total of
15
minutes. That way you can have a robust conversation, still time to report back and summarize. So go ahead and get started in your groups.
Yeah, that's why it's kind of good for me to push it. Yeah.
It's like I know this all. Yeah. I just think that's what. These are the signs. Last time I was really lucky. Sent it. I love all of this. Yeah, just. Sure, yeah. I could just sit. Yeah, you know. That's what I said. Yeah. When appropriate, we're right. Yes. Oh, I think it's actually.
So that. Like, I got the way I did like, I know.
There is a shame.
Like.
No, I lost.
All right, everybody, if you could wrap up your last thought there and we'll continue with the evening. Afternoon, I guess. Can we just calm down and hear some- So, yeah.
All right.
Connie, you might want to speak into the microphone.
All right, we're ready to go. In an effort to keep things condensed here, we're gonna, start with question number 2. How to get volunteers trained? What are we training them on? What do we need? Start over here with my group.
Our group liked the idea of a recorded video that we posted to YouTube, that's a review of the member benefits that we could use to either show at a board meeting. It's like either our kickoff, but it's also a video that our volunteers could send to their prospects. That would help kind of introduce Farm Bureau in a quick, concise, professional way.
100%, we will do that.
That was our.
Fantastic. Kayla's group?
You're talking about training, right? The second question?
Yeah.
Okay, so, what we said is, if we get to a point where we have the sales staff, have them maybe come out to board meetings and help with that, so it's also a fresh face, a fresh perspective, maybe a different energy level. We did say that training depends a lot on the level of engagement of the volunteer and how much they want to interact with that training. But also just something that's more of like a one pager that could be included in a board packet, that we might hit the highlights, so they would have everything in a just concise document for their reference.
100%, we can do that. Kim's group.
That. But like I said, just getting them comfortable with their job, their assigned jobs. So if you're getting to the kickoff, yes, it does not want to sell memberships. Maybe there's another aspect of that. Other campaign they can help with, and then just the training should happen probably in January or traditional kickoffs or that time of year. Not gonna do it too early, like November or October with the volunteers, because they'll forget it all for the holidays.
Got it.
We said, like a 3 to 5 minute video that could be used at a board meeting or another committee meeting, if you have separate committee meetings about just easy sales techniques, value partner, value pillars, how to sell that. And, something that could easily be shared with members who maybe need a little, support how to sell. And, even a testimonial from a couple people who sold a lot, say, the reason I'm doing Farm Bureau is this, and this is what I lead with when I talk.
100%, we can do that. Troy, your group,
He's in with that.
he's with you. The break is there. Kirsten, you're next.
We talked, I mean, again, it's a video, but when we talked about our video, we are teaching people how to tell their why. Instead of just selling on the benefits, teach it why, that kind of that value pillar piece, you tell your story, how to organically do that, make our volunteers feel comfortable telling their story of why they're here.
Absolutely. So the good news is, who is we that's gonna do that? We is Danielle, myself, and all of you. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna gather all this information. We're gonna figure out what we're gonna need, what we need trained on, who we're gonna do it. We're gonna find those amongst us who are great salespeople, the Murray Lincoln Award winners. We're gonna talk to them. We're gonna have people who are great doing group sales. We're gonna talk to them. We're gonna have them help us create material. We're gonna go and everything that we need, we have our own tools to be able to do this ourselves. We just need to focus, find out what we need, and then we'll break down and we will find ways, find the right people to talk to that are who we want talking about it, and we will get those things accomplished. So, yes, Nick?
We add to that list, then we'll talk to a group member, why they do it, like Heritage.
Absolutely. Yes, we have all those things. So we'll continue to build that list. And then we, as regions and as a state, a group of field staff, we will create those materials, create that training, and find the best way to deliver it to our volunteers. So that is a great opportunity for us to really focus on what do we need. We're gonna make those lists. What you have, we'll take additional things, and then we're gonna figure out how to do that. Because the best salespeople for Farm Bureau are in this room, plus our key volunteers, right? So all of us have that ability ourselves, and those people right at hand who can help us out to create and deliver all the training that is needed. So we will do that, but we're not gonna make 17 videos. We'll gather, get together, find the group to be in charge of it, and that's how we're gonna do it. Questions? Very good.
I think a good start was what Paul started the whole day with. Isn't this going to be recorded? We can even chop this down and utilize it. So it's kind of already, the ball's in motion. I like it. Shoot and score. Number 3, what tactics do volunteers typically use to sell members? And why don't we combine that, and how do we get them to be more comfortable selling value? So how do they currently, typically those all-stars do it? And then how do we get the rest of them to sell value? You need to differentiate those questions, go for it. Well, let's start over with Kristen.
So we talked a lot about, right now, the tactics they like to use are discounts, or if you have a group membership or buy locals or any local benefit that they can give. That's the tactics that they're comfortable with now. But when you combine that with, we talked about kind of going back to that, like why, was teaching them on that, getting them, how do we get them comfortable? We'll get them comfortable with their story, make them remember why they became a Farm Bureau member. And make them people talking about their own relationship with Farm Bureau and why they're a member, and sell on that first, and then they can sprinkle in the additionals instead of right now, they do the discounts first and then the lots.
Can I, you know, like, looking at numbers as, like, we're not gonna turn every single member who wants to go out for membership into sales professional. That's not what they're good at. If we can just get them to be genuine conversationalists about the topic, they're gonna probably stumble over their first couple sentences, and then they're gonna start talking about what they're passionate about, and they're gonna hit their stride. They probably don't need to know every single data point that we see on our side. If we can just get them out there talking about it, it'll be easier to convince them to go out and do that work.
Great. Good thoughts. Next group.
I guess we looked at it a little different when in regard to tactics. Our folks are texting people, they're using social media, sharing, and they're asking their peers. And they're utilizing things. Roy talked a lot about his volunteers utilize a gift or something like that to kind of use as an incentive for them to join. Handing somebody a hitch pin, handing something a usable, like an SMB sign, is an incentive when they go out and work. Use that as an incentive to the people that they're talking to, so they have an instant gratification of joining. You got a hitch pin, or you got a gift card, you got something like that. And I agree. We talked about how do you get volunteers comfortable with selling the value, and it goes back to being comfortable with them, why they are members. The recognition of why they are members, why they continue to be members, and why they join makes them easier to talk to.
Awesome. Good. Nick?
We have some folks who would rather talk to strangers than their friends. Sometimes low-lying fruit is your friend. They may not be comfortable with that. And then just how to recognize the value to sell it. Kind of talked earlier about simplified that they can talk to people for what fund them, but then they're very comfortable with the kind of program, local things they do there. So we wouldn't necessarily have to add that to that document, but if they had something about the general review of Farm Bureau, what it does for them as a member, that would be helpful.
Good deal. Hearing a trend across the room. Kayla.
So as far as tactics, I know with my folks, I see them utilizing the personal connection. My folks are much more likely to shame a friend into joining than they are a stranger. But also using those local events. And so whether that's the office is sending a mailing, inviting, CAUV members or something to an event, we get them in the door and then our volunteers are having those conversations and making the connections. And so local events, local connections. And then as far as value, our group loved the value document, the huge document that we have. What we did talk about is that is a little bit overwhelming, but I think when you talk about getting our volunteers comfortable with selling value, I think they have to understand fully the value of what we're offering to the group of people they're talking to. And so we would love to see some part of that document pulled into like colorful one-pagers that if you're talking to a beef farmer, then we can equip our volunteers with some documents that they can kind of refresh, but they can also have those, what have we actually done for you in the last couple of years that influences your farm business? And make that a little more relevant to the people they're talking to.
I know we had some kind of, we broke that down, didn't we? Is it, I don't know where those resources are in the,
Processing and.
yeah,
And
resurface it and put it on a page, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, pulling in that value document that was created a couple of years ago, last year.
okay, good deal. Last group, Lindsay?
We didn't have, a lot of what we mentioned, Earth Road has been mentioned, but one thing is like, a lot of our volunteers have used CAUV in the past, so I think we do need to work on that approach still, because even though we're not thrilled with the increases, it's still a space that members see savings in, and we still do a lot, and it's threatened. So I think with something.
Very good. One last question. Go for it. The new ideas or any thoughts about how to process payments in the field?
Over here?
Well, we have members that generally just collect check, cash, credit card info. It was mentioned that, like, we know, like Kayla's group, they use Venmo and do you do it for membership payments too, or just like?
Only if we have to, but it is an option.
Okay. Like my volunteers really like to send a link, but it just gets complicated. If it's to like an unpaid and they have an account, because it almost always results in a duplicate account being created, so that's where.
All right, so I think on these, we're gonna have a lot of the same answers. I think it's fair to say. So how many people are mostly getting checks when your volunteers work? How many get cash? How many people are using the membership portal, your volunteers? All right. So so noted on that. Betsy?
Different comment that we had was, is there any way for the portal to be able to hold the information that's put into it, and then it would upload it when it gets to a service area? If we have volunteers that are willing to use it, is there any way to save that page from when they input it and they don't have enough service for it to connect at that time? That when they get to the top of the hill, that is, we're discussing, that it would be an automatic send. Then we realize they're not gonna have the receipt to email, whatever, but is there a way that it can have a delay tactic put in there sometime that when service resumes, it goes through? Good question. Not find those, basically?
Yeah.
It beats everybody writing down the credit card info and us shredding it and or the carrier.
Right.
I had a volunteer a couple years ago, Bruce Patterson, walked into a state rep's office, made a photocopy of the application from the previous year, with credit card, the representative's credit card information, so just sign here, we'll renew your membership.
Oh.
All right. Just, we need to keep things moving, but does anybody have anything else that they have as a desire that we haven't covered?
No, but I was gonna say, a lot of times my volunteers will give them the office number and just tell them to call the office and renew that way, and kind of remove themselves from the equation as well.
Okay.
We did that up with a credit card.
Yeah.
A selling toolkit, put together a small selling toolkit of tips and ideas about how to sell a membership, complete the sale.
Yeah.
Preparedness.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for all your feedback. Appreciate it very much. And we'll pass it back over to Danielle.